Welcome back to the Reentry Room. This is the space where we stop pretending that working motherhood has to look one certain way and we actually start telling the truth about what it really feels like for all of us. I'm Alexa Starks. I'm your host. I'm a workplace culture innovator, a mom of two toddlers, a coach for working moms, and the founder of Executive Moms. And today we have with us Katie Falcone. She's a community builder, a coach, and co founder of I'm Her Story. I'm so excited to have you on, Katie. Welcome to the Reentry Room.
Thank you so much, Alexa. I'm so happy to be here.
I would love if you would please tell all the listeners a little bit about what you do, who you help, what you're building, and yeah, all about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my mom and I actually created this company, I'm Her Story. We found that there was women in her generation who are dealing with issues like ageism, toxic workplaces, not getting paid what you're worth. My generation and generations younger than me are dealing with the same issues, but a lot of us are also dealing with being a working parent in 2025 and what that looks like and what it looks like coming back from maternity leave. When we started talking about these issues, we found that a lot of women were DMing us privately saying that they were afraid to comment on our posts,
Mm.
like any of our posts, because they were afraid that their boss would see, their coworker would see.
Mhm.
So we started this safe space, this group called I'm Her Story, which is a private community
Mhm.
where you can pretty much tell your story and be able to get support from other women that are dealing with the same issues. We find that it's very hard to talk to your coworkers just because some things
Yeah.
could get taken out of context for you if you get a promotion. Sometimes it's hard to talk to family members or friends because of the emotional aspect that comes with wanting
Mhm.
to take care of you and basically just telling you maybe you should just quit your job. Getting unbiased support from other women and being able to tell your story actually is a cathartic experience that we have found. There's a lot of women that are keeping their emotions inside of their body, which actually presents as autoimmune disorders, cancer, chronic disease. As you know, we're women, we keep everything in, and
Yeah.
it's starting to become a problem, which
Mhm.
is why we've created this community.
Wow, that's so amazing. That's so meaningful. I have I know the listeners know this, but I have two toddlers and I had no community both times. And still now I'm like just now kind of finding some mom friends. But when I was in the middle of like rough postpartum and having postpartum anxiety and postpartum rage and just struggling, especially with two kids under two, like I didn't have anyone else to lean on and I really struggled. And when I went back to work, I also struggled and didn't know how to speak up for myself. That's why I created my business. But I love what you're doing. It is so impactful and so meaningful. I'm just so curious. So is it an app? Is it a Slack group? Is it a Facebook group? What does this look like?
Yep, so our community is on Circle. That's the platform that we're
Mm.
using right now. So you can access it straight from an app. And we have links, obviously, to the community through LinkedIn, where we're posting
Hmm.
all of the women that we speak to, their stories. I have two toddlers that are twins, they're 4 years old. I've dealt with the same thing. I always thought that there was something wrong with me because I couldn't do both. I
Yeah.
wasn't being supported at work. I had a really hard time meshing both of them and being able to emotionally regulate as my brain
Hmm.
was still getting back to normal after 2 years. And I've just found that the systems are not supportive for women, especially women who have multiple babies at the same time coming back into work. It's a struggle that not a lot of women talk about because it's embarrassing
Hmm.
and it makes you feel inadequate. You're in your head, you feel like you're not enough. All of those
Hmm.
self-limiting beliefs come up, and then we're constantly operating from a place of fear, right? So I feel like the generations before us really got us a seat at the table. My
Yeah.
mother's generation secured that place at the table. So they
Hmm.
said, you know, we have a place here and we're just going to keep dealing with all of these issues in the workplace because we're just happy to be here. And I think our generation is saying, I don't really want to be at this table. If this is what the table looks like, I don't want to be here.
This table sucks. Who let this happen?
Right. There has to be a better table where we're
Yeah.
supported, where we're getting paid what we're worth, where we're not having to deal with the toxic boss or the toxic coworker just to get the paycheck, where we can proudly say, "Hey, I'm 65 years old and I have all this
Hmm.
experience, and if you want to push me out of the workplace because of my age, I'll be okay. I can go
Yeah.
somewhere else."
I
We just
love, I
rewrite that
love,
story. Yes.
yeah. I love that we're designing a better table to be at for ourselves and for other moms because it is hard. And I mean, I had two kids under two. I mean, I have two kids under two. And you had twins. That's first of all, like hats off, claps to you, kudos. That's amazing to have twins, and have two of that, two babies at once, two newborn crying tantrums, all of that at once. And yeah, there isn't like a good handbook or
Right.
rule book or guide of even just like postpartum and then how to return to work and how to like you're still so newly postpartum when
Yep.
you go back to work. And like you said, your hormones are all over the place still. You're just still figuring out breastfeeding maybe or feeding. And now you have to add work back into everything. Probably not sleeping still. So
Right.
it is so hard. And there's so many other moms that I work with and that I talk to every day that are also like, I can't make this work, or I don't want to make this work anymore. There's got to be something better than this, right?
Right. Yeah. And I've also found through all the women that I've spoken to within the community that it's almost like all of the reasons why we were hired in the first place, confidence,
Hmm.
being able to stand up and go to bat for your team. Once you have kids, it's almost like those things are held against you. So
Mm,
my confidence I started being labeled as hormonal
right.
or confrontational. And it wasn't until I started talking about this and what was happening to me and that I felt like I was being pushed out of the workplace because I mean they're corporations. If you have a unstable mother, even though you're hitting all of your
Uh-huh.
deadlines, I mean it's always profits over people. They want to protect the
Yep.
bottom line. And there's so many women that have come out and said this same thing is happening to me. My boss is counting my emails, saying, "You're not
Yeah.
sending me as many emails in the middle of the night anymore." I had one woman tell me that her boss told her it's a requirement to have childcare from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. with no raise,
Whoa.
no support
Whoa.
whatsoever. And then the childcare costs are just just doesn't
Yeah,
really make any
astonishing.
sense anymore to
Hmm.
have to be completely dysregulated at work and then go home and be dysregulated at the same time. It's like there's just no there's no in between. There's no way to calm yourself down.
Yeah, they just expect you to figure it out. And that's, in one sense, it's fair because work is work, but life doesn't just stop when you work. Like
Right.
life and who you are continues on 24/7. And then you just happen to have a job between XYZ hours and everything still flows through that. And so it is so hard to navigate all of that by yourself. So I love what you're building. I wish I had that. I'm actually going to check it out after we finish recording this episode, but it just sounds so beautiful. Okay, so I want to get into the meat of this episode. So our guest episodes are one of two topics. They're either a confession chair or a what she knows, which is where you share some of your biggest lessons about what you've learned. So, Katie, which are we doing today?
I would love to do the biggest lessons on what I've learned.
Okay.
I would say that the biggest lesson that I learned is looking back into my childhood and the way that I was told what work looks like is
Hmm.
kind of a trap that I feel like a lot of women walk
Mm.
into, right? So the way that I was shown that you're successful is you go to college, you work a corporate job
Hmm.
immediately, and you climb that ladder, and then
Hmm.
You're
Yeah.
supposed to be happy. You get
You're
married, you have
not?
kids. Yes, you climb the corporate ladder and you have all of the wealth that you
Mm-hmm.
could ever dream of. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that a lot of people are not shown a different way to go through that process. So there's a lot of blocking that happens from the age of 0 to 7. If your parents were constantly working on the weekends or they were working 16-hour days, you might have an idea of work. The only way that I can be successful is if I burn myself out by working 16-hour days.
Mm-hmm.
If you grow up in a wealthy community with doctors and lawyers, and maybe your family is struggling to make ends meet, you might overly you might work harder
Mm-hmm.
to try and prove to everybody that you can be successful and this is the only way to do it. I've learned that there are a lot of there's a lot of societal programming, a lot of familiar programming, and until we can actually get to the root cause of who we are authentically and what lights us up, we're going to keep running into situations in the workplace that are mirroring to us that maybe this is not the right profession to be in. Maybe this is not the right place to be in. And I've recognized throughout my career that I was dealing with the same toxic coworker or boss. And
Mm-hmm.
it was usually a woman. And after a while, I thought to myself, okay, there's something that I'm attracting this situation in my life. It's not that I just keep going into these same workplaces and they're all toxic workplaces, because I think it's really
Mm-hmm.
easy for us to label them as toxic workplaces. I think that we need to start looking inside ourselves and saying, what is it about my programming, about my familiar programming that keeps putting the same person in my place that I need to work through myself? Like, what self-limiting beliefs do I need to work on so that I can finally figure out, I can overcome that block and I can figure
Mm-hmm.
out what's most successful for my path. What's my
Wow.
authentic path?
That's so powerful. I sorry, fighting my kids'
That makes
daycare
sense. I
cold.
feel like I just went on a tangent.
No, I absolutely love it. I mean, I really resonate with the workplace like um, ideal image, right? And I was taught the same thing. Go to college, you get your degree, you work your way up the ladder, and I had mapped out my entire career. And then I was like, I'm going to get up to the C-suite and do XYZ promotions. And then I had kids, and I was like, oh, I don't want to work in advertising. Who gives a fuck about advertising anymore? And so but I think what I want to touch on is a lot of what you're talking about requires a great deal of self awareness.
Yes,
Is
absolutely.
that something that you see a lot in the community or teach about or help other women to build? Because self awareness is something I had no idea about until I needed to go to therapy and like a decade ago and was like, what's self awareness? And it like blew my mind and like opened all these doors for me. But like I didn't
In what
know.
capacities do you mean self-awareness? Like emotional intelligence or
Just awareness of what you want, awareness of where you envision your life, awareness of your emotions, hormonal changes, and postpartum. Like, I didn't know what postpartum anxiety was until one day I was just like, I don't like this feeling. And let me Google it. And then went down a rabbit hole on Google. Um, but self awareness about all those things is so important, but it's
right?
a hard skill.
It's a very hard skill because all of us are given a playbook, right? So your experience when you were a kid is either what you replicate because that's all you know, or it's what you aspire to do the opposite of.
Hmm.
So you're either trying to prove something because of a self-limiting belief, or you are just following a playbook because you were never given a blueprint for anything else.
That's so
So I
interesting.
want to raise my kids in Vermont because I was lucky enough to live in many different places in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that I was never given a playbook for women or people who are successful following their passion and making money from it. So
Mm-hmm.
I had blocks around that. I thought that the only way
Yeah.
that you could be successful was um, follow the path,
Mm-hmm.
straight into a corporate job. And I also had a really odd view of what wealth looked like. Um, not so, not very nice people, not very nice
Mm-hmm.
families. So I had to find people, expanders basically, that showed
Mm-hmm.
me that you could create your own life, you could be successful following your passion, and you could be wealthy and also give back to the community. So I think that there's just a lot of work in self-awareness and being able
Mm-hmm.
to go back and heal your inner child and be able to look into your shadow and figure out what do I authentically desire and how am I blocking myself from that based off of all of my childhood programming. And it's really hard work to do. And I think a lot of women, we internalize everything. We
Mm-hmm.
internalize everything for our kids. Especially during COVID, we had to hold it all together for our families. I mean, us even being able to create a path for ourselves is almost looked at as selfish in society,
Yeah.
and not being able to give up everything for our kids or for our husband or
Mm-hmm.
for our family, just putting your career first is kind of looked down upon. And then when you're
Yeah.
in the work field, in the workforce, it's like you're constantly fighting for a seat at the table that we
Mm.
don't even really want to sit
Yeah.
at anymore.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it's really just overcoming, um, knowing who you are, being able to unblock, and then being able to have a fearlessness of I can walk in and have a hard conversation with a boss and ask for what I'm worth. And if they show me the door, I'm going to be okay. That's what this community provides.
mm.
We want to help people get rid of that fear of I'm just going to keep letting people walk all over me. I'm
Yeah.
going to keep letting this boss treat me a certain way. I'm going to keep pushing and white knuckling my way through motherhood, even though things aren't going well at home with my kids, just to get
Mm-hmm.
that paycheck. We just want to be able to help people feel safe so that they can get their story out of their body, get those emotions out, and then get support from other women. So if they need to regulate their nervous system and have that hard conversation or walk away from that job, they have a safety net of people that will support them.
Wow. Oh my God. I feel like I have chills. That was so powerful and just I mean, your line about not having to white knuckle it through work and motherhood. God, like that, I'm gonna have to pull that out as a quote because that's a good one. Like it definitely reminds me of my postpartum return to work experiences of just white knuckling it. Okay, but I love this. I want to wrap this up with what would be your one biggest like piece of advice or first step that a mom can take, or what is the biggest key takeaway you want a mom to have?
Don't hold your story in. Get your story, get your emotions out of your body and into a support group, because that's the first step in being able to heal, is actually admitting what is happening without fear of retaliation.
Oh, I love that. So then where can we find I'm Her Story?
So you can go to our website, imherstory.com. You can follow me on LinkedIn, Katie Falcone, or my mom, Karen Falcone, on LinkedIn. And yeah, please join the community. We're having roundtables every month. We are getting speakers every month to speak exclusively to all of the members in the community. And don't be afraid to tell your story, because we're here to support you. It's a safe space. It's really, really hard to get into a place where you can actually feel safe enough to talk about what's happened to you.
I love that. That's so, so powerful. I will put a link in the description to your website and where to find you, Katie, and I'm Her Story. Thank you so much for joining us today and listening to the Reentry Room. If today's conversation hit home, please, listeners, share it with another mom who needs to hear it. And if you're in your first year back after work and looking for help with maternity leave transition back to work, I will put a link to some of my resources as well for you to check out. Katie, it has been a pleasure and such a powerful, powerful episode. So thank you so much for being
So
here.
much.
And we'll
Thank
see
you,
you in the next
Alexa.
episode.
Bye.